Today is Tuesday, April 15th. We'll bring you the latest in a legal battle over a Maryland man's deportation and explain how one elite university is defying President Trump. Also, a group of American businesses is suing over tariffs, just as the White House says they're starting to pay off in a big way. Plus, a new warning about a popular weight loss drug, an earthquake that shook millions of Americans and a group of elephants, and the vice president's fumble in front of national champions. Those stories and even more news coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. It's now looking more likely a Maryland father who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador is going to stay there for a while, despite what the courts say. In a White House meeting yesterday, top U.S. officials said it was up to the Salvadoran government to decide whether to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the U.S., since he's in their custody now. But during that same meeting, the Salvadoran president, Nayib Bukele, said he doesn't have the power either. In fact, Bukele said it was preposterous to suggest he might return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, since it would basically mean smuggling a terrorist into the U.S. Remember, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return, but never defined specific steps American officials should take. Then yesterday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio echoed other top officials in saying, quote, "The foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not a court." Now, some top Democrats are calling on Supreme Court justices to hold the Trump administration in contempt. So far, no word on whether that's being considered. Also of note, President Trump spoke yesterday about the possibility of sending American citizens convicted of violent crimes to prison in El Salvador. And he told President Bukele to build more prisons. Trump did say the Attorney General was still looking into whether that would be legal, but already some civil rights activists and legal scholars have said it's not. For now, Trump just says he's focused on deporting migrants he believes to be dangerous. And Bukele has a deal with the Trump administration to detain them for $6 million a year. It's the strongest pushback so far against the Trump administration's university crackdown. Harvard says it will not comply with Trump's list of demands. And with that, the Trump administration froze $2.2 billion in grants, along with a $60 million contract. It started when the Trump administration wrote the school last week with a list of demands. Those demands include changes to leadership and admissions, a comprehensive mask ban, and an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. That includes in the classroom, and told Harvard to audit the student body, faculty, staff, and leadership on their views about diversity, while Harvard's lawyers call the Trump administration's demands unconstitutional. The White House explained by saying President Trump is just trying to make sure taxpayer dollars don't go to, quote, dangerous radical discrimination or racially motivated violence, and therefore it says Harvard is no longer eligible for federal funding. Meanwhile, hundreds of international student activists who took part in last year's campus protests are still being targeted by immigration authorities. Just yesterday, another Columbia student who's had a green card for the last 10 years was arrested as he showed up for an appointment he thought was a step toward becoming a U.S. citizen. Instead, immigration officers took him into custody, but as of this morning, he has not been charged with a crime. So far, no comment from the Trump administration. To be continued. Some small businesses are now taking the Trump administration to court in what's the broadest legal effort yet to rein in the so-called Liberation Day tariffs. A new lawsuit was filed on behalf of 5 American businesses who say they rely on imported goods. They range from a New York wine and spirits importer to a Virginia-based musical instrument maker. Their lawsuit says President Trump illegally stepped on Congress's power to levy tariffs, and that trade deficits have existed for decades without any big economic consequences, so they should not be considered an emergency now worthy of a presidential intervention. The White House, though, disagrees, saying current trade imbalances do constitute an extraordinary threat to America's national security and economy. Meanwhile, more tariffs are expected soon. In fact, the Trump administration already kicked off investigations into pharmaceuticals and semiconductors as part of an effort to impose new trade taxes on national security grounds. Stay tuned. One of the most valuable tech companies in the world announced it's going to start making its AI supercomputers in the U.S. for the first time. NVIDIA says it's working with manufacturing partners now to design and build factories for American production. And through these partnerships, it plans to produce up to $500 billion of AI infrastructure in the U.S. over the next 4 years. NVIDIA would not comment on whether potential tariffs had anything to do with the decision to expand in the U.S. But the White House put out a statement yesterday calling NVIDIA's announcement the Trump effect in action. And President Trump expects many other companies to follow. Tax day is here, and that means for most Americans, today is the deadline to file federal income tax returns or extensions. The IRS put out new statistics on Friday that show the average refund amount is now more than $3,100, about 3.5% higher than last year. If you still need to file today, the IRS says doing so electronically and choosing direct deposit is the fastest way to get a refund. One more thing you should keep in mind, if you plan to file for an extension today, that will give you another 6 months, but it won't give you an extension on any payment you might owe. The IRS has resources on its website for free filing software or free fillable forms. We added the link in today's episode notes. We have more news for you in just a minute, but first, this episode is sponsored by ZocDoc. Have you already felt the effects of spring where you live? I mean, listen, I love spring, but this time of year also tends to come with some extra sniffles for kids and adults with allergies or sensitivities. And we're not totally out of sick season yet either. But thanks to ZocDoc, allergy relief and other care you and your family need is a little easier to find. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. I love having this very specific search function at my fingertips so I don't waste my time calling around a bunch of doctor's offices that don't take my insurance. Been there, done that, no thank you. ZocDoc has more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, and more. And you can filter for doctors who take your insurance, are located nearby, and are highly rated by verified patients. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. A 5.2 magnitude earthquake shook Southern California yesterday, with tens of millions of people feeling the ground move from San Diego to Los Angeles. The quake's epicenter was near Julian, a mountain town about 60 miles northeast of San Diego. As of this morning, there haven't been reports of major damage or injuries, but it definitely rattled homes, businesses, and nerves. Boulders tumbled into rural roads, items fell off shelves, and trains were delayed. At the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, a herd of elephants formed what's known as an alert circle, instinctively gathering around their young as the ground shook. Staff says it's a behavior they've only ever seen a few times in response to natural events. They dispersed again once they determined everyone was safe. A new study questions the safety of a routine diagnostic procedure that's performed more than 90 million times a year in the U.S. The American Medical Association published research this week that found CT scans could end up causing 5% of cancer cases in the U.S. In other words, they could be responsible for more than 100,000 new cases each year. That puts the cancer-causing risk of CT scans on roughly the same level as alcohol, with the rate roughly 3 to 4 times higher than what past studies have found. So researchers are suggesting doctors avoid scans that might be unnecessary, especially for children. They're also suggesting lowering the radiation dose in each CT scan. All that said, the study points out how the scans are still an important diagnostic tool that could save lives. It says CT scanning is accurate, quick, well-tolerated, and relatively inexpensive, but that it's probably overused. So they also want a lot more research. And other experts agree more research is needed, including those who question the results of this study. For example, some doctors point out how a large portion of CT scans are performed on patients who are already actively sick, and that the theoretical risks of a CT scan are minor compared to the life-saving benefits. So bottom line, this is not the final word on safety, and people are encouraged to discuss options with their doctors. Anyone taking or prescribing Ozempic is now being asked to check their meds to make sure they're legitimate. The FDA says counterfeit versions of the diabetes drug and its weight loss equivalent, Wegovy, made their way into the U.S. drug supply chain. NBC News says that means they probably entered the market in unofficial ways, like through unauthorized distributors or resellers. And at this point, the agency says it doesn't know if they're safe since the counterfeit versions are still being tested. Some people who got the drugs reported some adverse side effects, but it's possible they're the same side effects that come with the genuine Ozempic, like stomach problems. To be clear, these fake products are different from compounded versions of the drug that have also become popular. The FDA actually allows those under special circumstances like shortages. If you want to check the lot numbers on your prescription to see if it's counterfeit, we've posted a link on today's episode notes. The Ohio State Buckeyes visited the White House to celebrate their NCAA football championship, and everything went well for most of the event until Vice President J.D. Vance fumbled the team's championship trophy. The VP is a proud OSU graduate, and he seemed especially excited as he tried to hoist the trophy into the air. But Vance apparently did not count on its golden top being designed to separate from the black bottom, and he lost grip on both pieces. It didn't look like the trophy was actually damaged since it went back together, but Vance still made light of the situation on social media by joking, quote, "I didn't want anyone after Ohio State to get the trophy, so I decided to break it." Up next, the Philadelphia Eagles are set to celebrate their Super Bowl win at the White House later this month. Some of the biggest stars in women's college basketball are now joining some of the biggest stars in the WNBA. The 2025 WNBA draft was last night, and as expected, the number one pick was UConn star Paige Beckers, fresh off a national championship win. She's now headed to the Dallas Wings. All told, 6 players from UConn have now gone number 1 overall, which is a record for any NCAA school. On the men's side, the NBA draft is scheduled for June. And for football fans, the NFL draft is coming up later this month. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Honeylove. Mother's Day is coming up, but for the moms listening, you don't need to wait for someone else to gift you what you really want. If you feel like your essentials could use an upgrade, treat yourself with what you actually want to wear. Ever since becoming a mom, comfort means even more to me. I need to be able to run around with my kiddo, but I also want to feel like a stylish, confident adult. Honeylove has revolutionized everything from leggings and tanks to shapewear and bras, and all of their products are made to be comfortable and supportive and fashionable for all shapes and sizes. My can't live without from Honeylove is their leggings. I'm wearing them right now. They're my go-to for so many reasons, whether I'm working from home or working out. I also love Honeylove's shapewear and bras. They're so comfortable, you'll forget you're even wearing them. Treat yourself to the most comfortable and innovative bras, shapewear, and leggings on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/newsworthy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off, honeylove.com/newsworthy. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in bras and more with Honeylove. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. And today's trivia question is, what was the first item sold on eBay? Listen again next Tuesday for the answer and explanation. As for last week's trivia question, what percentage of the U.S. population served in World War II? The answer is 12%. Overall, 16 million Americans served in uniform, mostly young men in their late teens and early 20s. About 400,000 women also enlisted for non-combat duties like nursing. Back home, no household was unaffected by war. The labor force was expanded by nearly 19 million people, and Americans faced rationing and shortages. To help foot the bill for war, Americans also paid higher taxes and bought some $6 billion worth of war bonds. Now, those who sacrificed at home and abroad are remembered as the greatest generation who defined the social, economic, and political landscape of the country and the world. Well, thank you so much for joining us to get caught up on the news today. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news to know. Until then, have a great day.